Unaware the wife he insulted was about to seal a $10 billion deal, husband poured dirty water on her after believing his mother's lies. What she did next: crushed them both. He didn't just insult her. He stood in the middle of his own living room, with his mother watching from behind his shoulder, and poured a bucket of dirty water over the woman who had been quietly holding his entire life together. That night, Hannah Collins walked into a dark house after a long day of high-stakes meetings. Just hours after securing internal approval on a historic $10 billion deal, and less than a day before the world would hear her name. She was tired, hopeful, and finally ready to tell her husband the truth about who she really was at work. Instead, she found Mark waiting in the shadows, his face twisted with anger, his mother, Eleanor, standing proudly behind him like a judge ready to pass sentence. "Where were you? Who were you with?" he shouted, his voice echoing off the walls. On the table, his phone displayed a single photo, Hannah speaking with a male colleague outside her office. What he didn't know was that the picture was staged, timed, and framed by the very woman whose hand was on his shoulder. He thought he was punishing a cheating wife. He thought his mother's rumors were the truth. He thought Hannah was just a disloyal woman who finally got exposed. What he never imagined was this: the woman he had just humiliated in his own living room was the lead negotiator of that $10 billion merger, a woman who had already gathered every proof, every number, and every secret she needed. Not just to walk away safely, but to bring everything around him crashing down in full daylight. Dear viewers, thank you for being here. If you watch without subscribing, it's like letting Hannah's voice be drowned out by lies. When you click that button, you stand with every person falsely accused, every partner humiliated, and every quiet soul planning their comeback. Please, subscribe now. And in the comments, tell me where you're watching from. The pen slipped from Hannah Collins' fingers. It wasn't because she was clumsy. It wasn't because she was tired. It was because the weight of everything she had built, everything she had sacrificed, everything she had protected in silence, was about to change in less than 12 hours. Hannah, 34 years old, respected senior negotiator and lead architect of a colossal corporate merger, sat at the polished conference table alone. The room was spotless, stainless, cold. The kind of cold that reminded her how far she had climbed from the cluttered, chaotic apartment she grew up in. She blinked at the documents before her, contracts worth $10 billion. Her signature line waited, neat, impatient, like it knew it controlled the next chapter of her life. Her phone buzzed beside her. One word flashed on the screen: tonight. Her chest tightened. To the audience, this message isn't mysterious. It's the confirmation from her mentor and attorney that the final internal signing would happen tonight, and the public announcement would follow in the morning. Hannah was hours away from cementing the deal and from finally telling her husband the truth. But for the audience, this is also the moment to truly understand who she is. Hannah did not inherit her success. She did not marry into power. She fought for every inch of her career. At 17, she sits on a worn-out couch with textbooks stacked around her. Her father, who raised her alone after her mother left, squeezes her hand before heading to his night shift. "You'll build a better life than I ever could, Hannah." At 22, she rejects her first job offer because it would keep her tied to a toxic supervisor known for harassing junior staff. She chooses growth over comfort. At 26, her mentor, Arthur Hawthorne, tells her in a cramped glass office, "You have a mind built for war rooms, not office cubicles." At 29, she meets Mark. He's kind then, warm, funny, someone who listens. His insecurity shows even then, how he flinches whenever someone praises her intelligence. But she convinces herself love can hold that weight. Over the years, she rises. Late nights, cold boardrooms, endless training. She becomes the person executives bring in when deals are on the line. In the heavy, painful choice, she hides her full success from Mark so he never feels less. She keeps promotions quiet. She downplays bonuses. She always says, "Just a small task at work." She pays most of the bills from accounts in her name. The house is largely funded by her, but she never throws it in his face. She thinks protecting his pride means protecting the marriage. Tonight was supposed to be the night she stopped shrinking. The conference room hums with soft air conditioning. The city outside glows, unaware of how close Hannah is to changing their future. She gathers the thick folders, aligning them with her usual precision. Arthur Hawthorne, calm but firm, early 60s, steps into the room. His gray hair and steady posture carry years of leadership. He is the person who believed in Hannah when she doubted herself. He offers a small smile. "This is it," he says. "Internal signatures tonight, press conference tomorrow. After this, you won't have to hide anymore." Hannah freezes, not out of fear, but conflict. Hiding has become a habit, a survival skill, a way to preserve Mark's fragile pride. But Arthur's words dig into her like a truth she's run from for years. She forces a faint smile. "I know," she whispers. The tremor in her voice is impossible to miss. This is where the emotional pressure rises. Love bent into silence. Loyalty stretched thin. Success folded away so someone else could stand taller. Her phone buzzes again. Same notification thread, Arthur's assistant. "Car will drop you home after the prep session. Be ready for 8 p.m. tomorrow. Cameras." She exhales, steadying herself. Tonight she would finalize the merger internally. Tomorrow she would stand before the world at the press conference. And somewhere in between, she planned to finally tell Mark the truth. Her phone suddenly buzzes again, sharp and insistent. The name on the screen freezes her blood. Eleanor Collins. Mark's mother missed call. You're 5 times. Eleanor, the woman who never accepted Hannah. The woman who believed no woman was good enough for her son. The woman who could twist a truth into a lie with a smile. Eleanor rarely called more than once. 5 missed calls meant something calculated, not casual. Hannah stares at the screen too long. The storm had already begun long before Hannah noticed the sky. Across the city, in a modest living room, Eleanor Collins was already shaping a story, one that would crawl into Mark's mind and turn the man Hannah loved into a stranger she would not recognize by morning. The shouting hit first. A sharp, angry voice tore through the quiet living room before the audience even saw who it belonged to. "She thinks I don't see it, Mark. She thinks she can make a fool out of this family." The voice belonged to Eleanor Collins, Mark's mother, a woman in her late 50s, sharp-eyed, sharp-tongued, and sharper still in the ways she controlled the people around her. She stood with her hands on her hips, breathing hard, her face red with fury. Even when silent, Eleanor radiated intensity. Mark Collins, 36, Hannah's husband, stood in front of her, tense, shoulders stiff. At work, he managed teams and projects, used to people listening when he spoke. But in front of his mother, he reverted to the frightened boy he once was. "Mom, what happened? What are you talking about?" he asked, voice tight. Eleanor didn't want calm. She wanted control. Her rage cooled into a low, deliberate tone, the kind that made her words feel heavier than any shout. Eleanor's hatred did not begin tonight. It had years behind it. When Mark was 6, he sits on the kitchen floor, crying as his father slams the door and walks out. Eleanor kneels beside him, clutching him too tightly. "I'll never let anyone take you away from me, Mark. Never." The promise grows into something dark. When Mark was 15, he tries to go to a friend's house. Eleanor blocks the door. "You don't need anyone but me." He stays. When Mark was 28, he tells his mother he's getting married. Eleanor's smile fades instantly. "She's stealing you, just like your father left me. You're leaving me too." From that moment, Eleanor sees Hannah not as a daughter-in-law, but as a thief, someone taking her son's loyalty, someone replacing her. For years, she drops little comments. "She's always out late. She thinks she's better than us. She'll leave when she finds someone richer." Mark laughs them off, at first. Now Eleanor sits on the sofa, breathing steadier, anger reshaped into calculation. She pats the cushion beside her, and Mark sits frowning. "Mom, just tell me what you think you saw." Eleanor reaches into her purse. Her movements are precise, controlled, practiced. "Not what I think I saw," she says softly. "What I recorded." She pulls out her phone, swipes, and holds it up. A photo of Hannah standing outside her office with a male colleague, Aaron, talking closely. It's taken from across the street, zoomed in. From this angle, without context, it looks intimate, like a secret. The audience understands the truth. Eleanor had gone to the building before, suspicious. She watched from a cafe window until she saw Hannah walk out with a man. She waited for the closest moment and clicked. Mark doesn't know any of this. This is his mother, his anchor, the woman who raised him alone when his father left, the person he believes would never lie to him. After his father's abandonment, Eleanor became his entire world. Her fears became his fears. Her opinions shaped his own. She convinced him that trusting others too much leads to being left. So now when she speaks, he listens. He stares at the photo too long. His hands shake. The room feels smaller. Where did you get this? He whispers, though he already knows the answer. Eleanor leans closer, voice warm, too warm. I was near your wife's office. I saw her walk out. She didn't see me, of course. She was busy. She swipes again, showing a second picture. Aaron touching Hannah's elbow as they laugh about something work-related. In real life, it lasted less than a second. In a still image, it looks intimate. She's been secretive, hasn't she? Eleanor murmurs. Late nights, phone on silent, telling you it's just work. Mark's throat tightens. She's telling the truth about the symptoms, but lying about the diagnosis. Hannah has been distant, late nights, confidential files. I can't tell you yet, but soon. The audience knows this is all tied to the merger. Eleanor twists every sign into betrayal. Mark sits back, breathing hard. Recent weeks, Hannah leaving before sunrise, Hannah pulling her laptop away when he walks past. Hannah smiling at a notification, then quickly locking her phone, not out of guilt, but because of strict confidentiality training. Eleanor's voice cuts through his thoughts, soft and deadly. Tonight you'll see the truth. Don't confront her yet. She'll just lie. Let her walk into her own exposure. He swallows. Mom, what are you planning? Eleanor gives a small, satisfied smile. Just be home when she returns. I'll make sure everything is clear. She wasn't protecting her son. She was protecting her ownership. Eleanor stands, smoothing her blouse. And Mark, she adds lightly, Lena will be here later. You need someone who's truly on your side when this all comes out. The name lands like a stone in still water. Lena, the woman Eleanor herself brought into his life. And somewhere, lines that should have never crossed are already tangled beyond recognition. The door slammed so hard the picture frames rattled. Lena Hart flinched, but only inside. On the surface, she let out a soft gasp, the kind she'd perfected to draw sympathy. She stepped out from the hallway shadows, expression full of practiced worry, hands clasped as if she'd been wringing them for hours. This is the audience's first clear view of her. Lena, 31, elegant, composed, carefully put together. The kind of woman who never left the house without knowing exactly how she looked and who might be watching. She wasn't just Mark's mistress by accident. She was introduced into his world 2 years ago by Eleanor under the pretense of helping with business connections. But Eleanor had other plans, and Lena was willing to play her part if it meant stability and status. She approaches slowly, voice soft. Mark, I heard shouting. Are you okay? Her tone is gentle, soothing, so opposite from Eleanor's harshness that it creates a sharp emotional contrast. With Eleanor, Mark feels pushed. With Lena, he feels understood. Mark rubs his forehead, pacing. His emotions are a storm. Mom says Hannah is cheating, he mutters. I don't know what to believe anymore. Lena places a hand lightly on his arm, a touch that looks comforting, but is calculated. Lena's eyes soften, but beneath the softness is calculation. The audience sees it. Mark doesn't. He is too hungry for reassurance. Mark, she whispers, you've always been loyal. All you've ever asked for is honesty. She tilts her head just right. You deserve someone who chooses you openly, not someone who hides her life from you. Her words seep into the cracks Eleanor opened. Mark's breathing steadies a little. But Hannah, she wouldn't just... Lena cuts in gently, like she's afraid to say too much. I'm not saying she's guilty. I'm saying, if you feel something is wrong, you should trust that feeling. Otherwise, you'll drive yourself crazy. Her tone is supportive. Her face shows concern. Her heart has none. 2 years earlier, a cafe. Eleanor and Lena sit across from each other. Eleanor stirs her drink slowly, eyes fixed. Hannah is too ambitious, Eleanor says. Too independent. Mark needs someone who will put him first. Lena nods, hiding her eagerness behind a modest smile. She grew up watching her mother struggle, bouncing from one unstable relationship to another. Lena promised herself she'd never live like that. She wanted financial safety, comfort, and a man whose career she could attach herself to. Mark fit perfectly. Steady job, kind nature, and a mother who wanted Hannah gone. Eleanor leans closer, voice low. If you want security, make sure he doubts his wife, gently. Not too much at once, just enough to make him lean on you. Lena remembers the thrill, not guilt, opportunity. Mark sinks onto the couch, elbows on his knees, head in his hands. The image of the photo Eleanor showed him keeps replaying. Lena sits beside him, careful to keep just enough distance to look respectful. She's been distant lately, right? She asks softly. Leaving early, coming home late, telling you not to worry about work details? All true, just not for the reasons she suggests. Mark nods slowly. Lena continues. If it was me, I'd want you to ask me, to look me in the eye and say, is there someone else? The irony bites, but only for the audience. Mark looks at her torn. I don't even know how to talk to her about it. Lena taps his arm once, then withdraws. Maybe. Tonight is your chance. Go home earlier than she expects. Don't warn her. Just see what she walks into the house with. See how she reacts when you show her the photo. The suggestion isn't loud, it isn't aggressive, but it lands like a command. The front door opens again. Eleanor enters carrying a small metal bucket and a plastic bag of cleaning supplies. To Mark, it's normal. His mother always fusses around the house. To the audience, it's preparation. Lena stands, smoothing her dress. Eleanor sets the bucket near the kitchen, then walks over and puts her hands on Mark's shoulders. Tonight you'll finally know, she says gently. No more doubts, no more secrets. Lena glances at Eleanor. Their eyes meet for a fraction of a second, a silent acknowledgement of the parts they're playing. Mark doesn't see it. He sees only people he believes are on his side. His voice comes out small. I don't want to be a fool. Lena leans in, whispering near his ear. That's why you have us. Mark stands, decision solidifying in his eyes. He will wait. He will confront. He will demand the truth. As he walks down the hallway, Lena moves close to Eleanor and murmurs just loud enough for the audience to catch. After tonight, he won't have anything left to doubt. Eleanor smiles. Somewhere across the city, Hannah is gathering the last documents she needs for the deal that will raise her to a new level, unaware that the people waiting at home are preparing to drag her down. Mark slammed the bathroom door so hard the mirror trembled. His reflection wavered, but his anger did not. His breath came in sharp bursts as he stared at himself, eyes red, jaw clenched, fists tight at his sides like he was preparing for war. This is where the intensity starts. Mark didn't normally look like this. He was usually composed, the kind of man who organized his day down to the minute. Tonight, everything inside him felt unstable, like someone had pulled up the floorboards of his mind. He leaned toward the mirror, whispering through gritted teeth, just ask her. Don't let her make a fool of you. But the person he was arguing with wasn't Hannah. It was fear. Memories hit, loud, sharp, uninvited. Little Mark cries in the corner, while Eleanor screams at the doorway. Don't leave me like this. Don't walk out. His father leaves anyway. The door slams. Eleanor collapses, pulling Mark into her arms. You're all I have. You'll never leave me, right? When he was 15, he stands at the door in a clean shirt, ready for a birthday party. Eleanor blocks him. I lost your father. I can't lose you too. You'll stay home. He stays. He always stays. At age 28, he tells her, I proposed to Hannah. Eleanor's smile is tight. I hope she treats you better than your father treated me. The words burrowed deep, tying loyalty to guilt. Now present day, Mark grips the sink. Mom has always protected me, he murmurs. Why would she lie? But another thought snakes beneath it. What if she's right? Mark steps out of the bathroom and grabs his phone from the nightstand. He has never gone through Hannah's messages before. They agreed early on. Privacy, mutual trust. Tonight, fear outweighs principle. He opens her messages, scrolling. Most threads are mundane. Groceries, reminders, spam. Then he finds Aaron. Meeting at 8. I'll bring the documents. Client wants you to lead tomorrow. I'm proud of you. Tonight is huge. They're professional messages with occasional encouragement, the kind any colleague might send when a massive deal was on the line. To the audience, this is normal. To Mark's already poisoned mind, it reads like intimacy. Why didn't she tell me she was meeting him at 8? Why does he say he's proud of her? Why does she seem lighter in these conversations than she does at home? He scrolls further up, but some earlier work messages are automatically deleted per company policy. Gaps in the thread feel like missing evidence, not routine data deletion. Eleanor's photo flashes in his memory, Hannah smiling with Aaron outside the building. Lena's words whisper through his mind. If you think she's hiding something, you should confront her. The audience already knows. Hannah works on a highly confidential $10 billion merger. She signed strict NDAs. She avoided discussing specifics at home to protect Mark from potential liability and to avoid triggering his insecurity. Earlier scenes showed she turned down a promotion once, just to protect his pride. Mark doesn't see that pattern now. He doesn't see sacrifice. He sees secrecy. His heart hammers as he repeats Aaron's text under his breath. I'm proud of you. Tonight is huge. He sees the words but not the context. Aaron sent similar encouragement to the entire team, but only hers is on his screen. Another memory slams into him. At age 18, he overhears Eleanor crying to a neighbor. Every man leaves eventually. Every man finds someone better. Young Mark hears it like a prophecy. Back in the bedroom, his breathing quickens. Sweat beads on his forehead. He starts rehearsing. Where were you? Who was that man? Explain these messages. He tries each sentence aloud. They sound less like questions and more like pleas. His reflection in the mirror looks back with a blend of anger and deep hurt. Don't let her lie to you, he whispers. Don't end up like your father. This is the real terror, not losing Hannah. Becoming the one who gets left behind. His phone buzzes, slicing through the silence. A message from Lena. If you go home early and say nothing, you might finally see who she really is. Mark stares at the words. He imagines Hannah walking through the door, unsuspecting. Imagines himself waiting in the dark, photo ready, questions loaded. By the time Hannah stepped into the house that night, he wasn't asking whether she betrayed him. He was sure she already had. And downstairs in the living room, a small security camera, the one Hannah installed months ago after Eleanor's constant unannounced visits, blinked quietly, recording everything that would soon destroy them. The front door slammed open so violently, the sound shot through the quiet house like a thunderclap. Hannah Collins froze in the entryway, her work bag sliding from her shoulder. She had come home exhausted but exhilarated. The internal approval for the $10 billion merger had just been finalized. The public announcement was scheduled for the next morning's press conference. Tonight she had planned to finally tell Mark, "We did it. Our lives are about to change." Instead of warm light or her husband's smile, she walked into darkness. Not natural evening dimness. The lights were off on purpose. The air felt staged, heavy, waiting. Her eyes adjusted. Then she saw them. Mark stood in the middle of the living room, posture stiff and unnatural. His chest rose and fell too fast. His face was twisted with anger and confusion. Behind him, Eleanor gripped his shoulder like she owned it, expression sharp with cold triumph. On the couch, Lena Hart sat with careful poise, legs crossed, hands folded as though she'd just happened to be visiting. One glance told Hannah this wasn't an accident. Whatever this was, it was arranged. "Mark," she said slowly, "why are the lights—" He cut her off with a roar. "Where were you?" She blinked. "At work. You knew I had late meetings. We talked about this, Who were you with?" He shouted louder. Hannah's gaze flicked to Eleanor's hand on his shoulder, then to Lena, whose eyes were wide with fake concern, the pieces locked together with horrifying clarity. Hannah straightened, forcing her voice calm. "Mark, what did she tell you?" The question was gentle, but it made him explode. He snatched his phone from the table and thrust it toward her, the screen lit with the photo Eleanor showed him. Hannah with Aaron outside the office, captured at an angle that made the conversation look intimate. "This," he spat. "You think I'm stupid? Coming home late, hiding calls, secret meetings." She looks at the screen. She remembers the moment, Aaron congratulating her after a long negotiation session, briefly touching her elbow as they laughed about a client's terrible joke. Hannah lifts her eyes to Mark. "You know I work on confidential deals," she says evenly. "You know we've been closing something big. You could have asked me, you didn't." Eleanor leans forward, voice cool. "A faithful wife doesn't look like that with another man. Impurities need to be washed away." The phrase hits Hannah like a delayed punch. Weeks ago, Eleanor had said something similar when accusing Hannah of bringing bad energy into Mark's life. Back then, Hannah brushed it off. Now she realizes it was a warning. Eleanor walks to the corner where she earlier placed the metal bucket. She lifts it easily and sets it beside Mark. The sour smell immediately explains its contents. Dirty mop water she had intentionally saved instead of throwing out. "This house needs cleansing," Eleanor says softly. "Start with the one who brought shame." Lena shifts on the couch, looking uneasy. She hadn't expected this level of cruelty. But she doesn't speak. She watches. Mark hesitates, staring at the murky water. "Mom, this is too much," he mutters, voice shaking. Eleanor leans in, her words sliding straight into his old fears. "She humiliated you first. She lied. She made you into a fool. Are you going to stand there and let her?" Mark looks at Hannah, his wife still in her work clothes, bag on the floor, face stunned but not pleading. He sees the hours she's been gone, the unread explanations, the photo, Aaron's messages, his mother's stories, Lena's planted doubts. He doesn't see the years of sacrifice she made. Hannah takes a small step toward him. "Mark, listen to me carefully," she says, voice low but steady. "If you do anything you can't undo, you will regret it. Put the bucket down. We talk like adults, or—" It happens faster than her sentence. Fear, pride, and manipulation crash together. Mark lifts the bucket with both hands. "Don't," she says sharply. He throws. The filthy water slams into her chest and face, ice cold and sour. The force pushes her backward into the wall. Her hair sticks to her skin, makeup streaking, clothes soaking instantly. The smell wraps around her like insult made physical. For a heartbeat, no one moves. Not Lena, not Eleanor, not even Mark, whose hands now shake violently as he stares at what he's done. The security camera in the corner blinks red, silently recording. He didn't ask for the truth. He sentenced her without a trial. Hannah slowly pushes herself upright. No screaming, no sobbing. Just a terrifying calm. She wipes a line of dirty water from her cheek with 2 fingers, as if marking the moment in her memory. She looks directly at Mark. "You'll regret this," she says quietly. It isn't shouted. It isn't dramatic. That's what makes it terrifying. Eleanor's smug expression flickers. Lena straightens, suddenly uneasy, because they all hear it the same way. This is not a threat tossed in anger. It is a promise made in clarity. Water drips from Hannah's clothes, forming a sour-smelling puddle at her feet. She walks past Mark without touching him, without even brushing her shoulder against his. As she disappears down the hallway, in that moment, the revenge she never wanted stopped being an idea and became a plan. And somewhere in the house, her phone buzzes on silent. Adrian Lewis's last message still unread. "Everything is drafted. You just say when." The bathroom door slammed so sharply that the echo felt like a crack splitting through the house. Hannah stumbled inside, dripping dirty water across the tiled floor, her clothes clinging to her skin like punishment that refused to let go. She grabbed the edge of the sink, breathing hard, chest rising and falling in uneven bursts. This was the intensity. Everything inside her buzzed with shock, yet her face refused to break. Her eyes refused to cry. She stared at her reflection, soaked, smeared, humiliated, and something inside her twisted into a cold, frightening stillness. A kind of silence that didn't numb pain, but sharpened it. Water slid from her hair and chin in slow, heavy drops, marking time on the porcelain. Memories rose like waves. 4 years ago, Mark came home pale, hands shaking, telling her he'd been laid off. He cried then, shoulders shaking as he whispered, "I don't know what we're going to do." Hannah pulled him into her arms. "It's okay. I'll carry us until you find something better." And she did. She took extra work, longer hours, quietly covering bills from her own accounts. 2 years ago, she was offered a major promotion. The salary bump would have made her the clear primary earner. Mark smiled at first, until friends joked about him being Mr. Hannah Collins. Later that night, he'd said softly, "I don't want people thinking I'm less than my own wife." So she turned it down. It wasn't the right time, she told him. He never knew she did it for him. 8 months ago, Arthur told her she was ready to lead the biggest merger the firm had ever handled. She said yes, quietly. No celebratory dinner, no social media, no bragging. She hid her success to protect his insecurity. And still, tonight he had thrown filth on her like she was the shame. Hannah lifted her head, meeting her own reflection with new eyes. This humiliation wasn't the beginning. It was the final chapter in a long book of quiet sacrifices. She reached for a towel. Slow movements, controlled, deliberate. No shaking hands, no frantic scrubbing, no whispered, "Why me?" Just methodical cleansing. She stripped off her wet clothes and turned on the shower, letting the clean water wash away the dirt Eleanor had weaponized. She scrubbed until the sour smell faded, but she knew there was no soap strong enough to wipe away what the act truly revealed. She had been loyal. She had been patient. She had made herself small. And for what? So he could believe his mother without asking a single real question? So he could let another woman sit comfortably in their living room while he humiliated his wife? Her jaw tightened. She had bent herself until she nearly broke. Now something inside her had snapped back into place. Straighter, sharper, unbreakable. This wasn't anger. This was awakening. Wrapped in a clean robe, Hannah sat on the closed toilet lid. She inhaled slowly, exhaled even slower. Her breathing steadied, her heartbeat calmed. Her mind, once clouded by love and excuses, became crystal clear. She reached for her phone on the counter. The screen's cold light illuminated her face. Before opening any messages, she tapped a security app, one she'd installed months earlier when Eleanor kept entering the house unannounced. A small thumbnail. Living room camera, recording active. She pressed play. There it was. Eleanor handing Mark the bucket. Mark shouting, Hannah walking in. The throw, the impact, her body hitting the wall. All recorded, time-stamped, stored. Hannah watched the clip once, then saved it to a secure folder she and her lawyer had set up weeks ago, in case things escalated. She wasn't naive. She'd seen Eleanor's patterns. She had already consulted someone about her options, hoping she'd never have to use them. She opened a hidden message thread labeled A Confidential. To the audience, the letter A finally gained shape. Adrian Lewis, senior divorce attorney, the same attorney Arthur had quietly recommended when he noticed how much Hannah was shrinking at home. Her fingers moved without hesitation. Use the footage from tonight. File everything. Move forward. Tonight. She hit send. No trembling. No second guessing. Hannah stood, tied her robe tighter and lifted her chin. Outside the door, the house was too quiet. Not the peaceful kind. The kind that hums with concealed listening. She turned the knob and opened the door. In the hallway, a shadow shifted. The outline of Mark, frozen halfway down the corridor. He hadn't heard the message she sent, only the shower, the soft movements, the absence of sobbing. His eyes searched her face, expecting rage. Her calm terrified him. What broke in Hannah that night did not break her spirit. It broke her limits. She stepped past him without a word. By morning, the first legal documents would already be in motion. The applause hit like thunder. Reporters crowded the barricades, cameras flashing, microphones raised, shouting her name as she stepped into the bright lights. Hannah Collins, polished, composed, no longer dimming herself, walked toward the glass podium with a confidence that electrified the room. Security escorted her to the front, executives lined the first row, and behind them hung a massive banner, Historic $10 billion merger finalized. Her name was printed first underneath, lead negotiator, co-architect, primary strategist. This was the intensity. The woman poured with dirty water in her own home, less than 12 hours earlier, now stood at the center of a global business story. Across town, Mark Collins sat hunched on the couch, still wearing the shirt from the night before. He hadn't slept. Eleanor paced behind him, restless. Lena sat on the far end of the couch, trying to look calm. The TV announcer said Hannah's full name. Mark looked up. On screen, Hannah stepped up to the podium in a sleek, tailored suit, hair smooth, makeup flawless. No trace of last night's humiliation, except in the firm set of her jaw. The caption at the bottom of the screen, Hannah Collins leads $10 billion multinational merger. Mark's mouth fell open. Eleanor stopped pacing. Lena's fingers tightened around the cushion. The woman they tried to break had already built an empire. Hannah remembers years earlier she bent over textbooks while others slept. She remembers her mentor's office. "You'll have to carve your place," Arthur had told her. "Nobody will hand it to you." Her quiet nights. Hannah pays bills from her own accounts, never mentioning that more than half of their financial stability came from her deals. Now the world watched her not as someone's wife, but as the strategist who closed a $10 billion merger. The room hushed as Hannah gripped the podium. "Good morning," she said, voice steady. "Today marks a turning point not just for our companies, but for how we think about global partnership." She outlined the merger terms: strategic markets, job protections, integration timelines. Every answer was clear, measured. Executives behind her nodded, grateful she was the public face of something this complex. For the first time, millions saw her true scale. No shrinking, no softening, no hiding. At home, Mark's heart sank with each sentence. All the late nights, the closed laptop. The "I can't tell you yet, but soon." They weren't lies. They were legal confidentiality and quiet loyalty. The betrayal had never been hers. When the presentation ended, journalists surged forward. "Ms. Collins, how long have you been negotiating this deal? Ms. Collins, what was the toughest part of this process? Ms. Collins, did you ever doubt you could pull this off?" She answered each one calmly. Then a reporter at the front, bolder than the rest, leaned closer. "Mrs. Collins," he said, emphasizing Mrs., "your husband must be incredibly proud. Any words from him today?" The room went still. Cameras zoomed in. Executives exchanged glances. The question was personal, but inevitable. At home, Mark straightened. Eleanor's face tightened. Lena stared at the screen, suddenly feeling very small. Hannah's lips parted slightly. She didn't answer right away. She let the silence breathe. Her pause stretched. Not awkward, but loaded. A pause that said, "There is a story you don't know." She finally spoke. "My husband," she began. She stopped again. One heartbeat, two, three. On screen, her eyes hardened. Just a little. "We'll find out exactly how proud he is soon enough." A ripple of shocked murmurs passed through the room. Cameras flashed like a storm. Reporters shouted follow-up questions. But Hannah stepped back from the podium, nodding to the moderator. The press conference was over. She had given them everything they needed, and nothing she didn't want to share. Back at home, Mark's hands shook. Eleanor looked pale. Lena whispered, "What? What does she mean by that?" They thought the worst part was the world seeing Hannah's power. They were wrong. The worst part was that the world was about to see their truth. By the time Hannah left the building, her attorney had already filed the petition. She wouldn't be returning to the house as his wife, but she would be returning as something far more dangerous. A woman who had stopped apologizing. The banging on the front door was so loud it rattled the frames on the hallway wall. Mark jerked upright from the couch, heart pounding. Eleanor flinched. Lena's eyes darted to the door, then to Mark. This was the intensity. He forced himself to stand. His mind raced. Maybe the press had tracked down their address. Maybe a neighbor. Maybe. He opened the door. Two men in dark suits stood outside, not police, but professional and detached, the look of people who delivered bad news for a living. "Mark Collins?" the taller one asked. "Yes." The man held out a thick envelope and a clipboard. "You've been served. Please confirm receipt." Mark signed automatically, hands shaking, then closed the door with a soft, final click. The air inside the house turned heavier. He tore the envelope open. Paper rasped against his fingers. When he saw the title on the first page, his knees nearly gave out. "Petition for divorce filed by Hannah Collins," Eleanor gasped. Lena stepped back, one hand on the wall. Mark's vision blurred. He sank to the floor, spreading the documents out with unsteady hands. This wasn't a single sheet. It was a file, organized, numbered, prepared long before last night. Evidence of emotional abuse statements describing Eleanor's interference, the constant undermining, the pressure on Hannah to shrink herself. Attached, screenshots of Eleanor's texts calling Hannah unworthy. Audio clips of Eleanor telling her, "You'll never be part of this family the way you want." Messages from Mark echoing his mother's words, telling Hannah she was too much, too ambitious. Mark swallowed hard. He didn't even remember sending some of those typed in frustration late at night. But he had video proof of the humiliation screenshots, still frames, and a link. He tapped it with trembling fingers. The living room footage played, Hannah stepping inside, smiling faintly, his shouting, Eleanor's hand on his shoulder. The bucket, the water, her body hitting the wall, Eleanor's satisfied face in the corner, Lena watching, not intervening. Everything captured, time-stamped. Mark dropped the phone, the sound echoing. "She recorded it?" he whispered. Of course she hadn't needed to record it last minute. The camera had been there for months. Eleanor's hidden financial misconduct documents showed small but repeated withdrawals from accounts in Mark's name over several years. Transfers labeled household expenses that never matched receipts. A pattern of unreported gifts to distant relatives, all drawn from funds Hannah had partially contributed. Next to the numbers, a note, traced with the help of a forensic accountant. See attached statement. Eleanor snatched at the pages, voice rising. "She twisted this. I did it for us. They were tiny amounts. Mark, you know I'd never steal from you." But Mark recognized some of the transaction dates, times when he'd wondered where the money went and Eleanor had brushed it off as bills. Lena's involvement screenshots of messages between Lena and Eleanor. Just remind him how distant Hannah is. He'll connect the dots. Don't push too hard. Make him think it's his idea. Audio clips of Lena's voice encouraging doubt. A still image of Lena entering the house late at night when Hannah was at the office. Lena went pale. Those are out of context," she stammered. "I was just being supportive. Your wife is twisting everything." Mark stared straight ahead, not answering. Mark's own financial missteps. Copies of old tax forms. A small personal loan Hannah never knew about. Statements showing he'd used their joint account for expenses he'd told Hannah the company covered. Nothing that made him a criminal. Everything that made him look irresponsible and dishonest. Hannah knew. She had quietly collected the truth he hoped would stay buried. On top of the stack sat a business card, clipped neatly. Adrian Lewis, senior divorce attorney. Memory back, Hannah in the bathroom. Robe tied, message sent. Move forward, tonight. Adrian hadn't started from zero. He'd simply pressed submit. Eleanor dropped onto the couch, clutching the papers. "This is her revenge," she cried. "She wants to destroy us. You can fight this, Mark. Tell the court she's lying. Tell them." But Mark didn't answer. He stared at the scattered evidence, vision swimming. He finally spoke, voice hollow. "I did this. Not the documents. Not the fraud. Not the camera. The moment in the living room. The decision to believe everyone but his wife." Lena whispered, What happens now?" The deal that could have lifted him higher became the one that buried him. Outside, a car door slammed. Mark looked up, heart stuttering. Hannah had returned, but when he moved toward the window, he saw she wasn't alone. A man stepped out beside her, suit sharp, expression unreadable. The name on his briefcase tag matched the card on Mark's floor. Adrian Lewis. By the end of the week, the storm had a face. It was Mark's. The crowd outside his office building was relentless. Reporters clustered at the steps, cameras flashing like lightning, voices overlapping in a chorus of accusation. Mark Collins, is it true your wife filed for divorce with abuse evidence? Are you involved in your mother's financial misconduct? Did you throw dirty water on your wife? Will you be stepping down from your position? Security pushed a path through the crowd, shielding him as he stumbled inside. This was the intensity. Employees glanced up from desks and screens, whispers following him down the hallway. He saw pity on some faces, judgment on others, curiosity on all. He pushed open his office door, only to find 3 board members waiting. Their expressions weren't confused. They were resolved. The chairman held a folder. "Mark," he began, voice neutral. "We've received calls from nearly every major partner." He laid the folder on Mark's desk. Inside were printed emails. Several clients had paused or withdrawn contracts. "Nobody wants to be attached to a public scandal involving domestic abuse and financial investigations," the chairman continued. "The video circulating online, it's clear. It shows you humiliating your wife." Mark's throat closed. He'd seen the video only once since the night he received the papers. It had spread faster than he imagined, first in legal circles, then as a leaked clip tied to the $10 billion merger story. "I didn't," he started, then stopped. He had done exactly what the video showed. The chairman raised a hand. "The board has voted to terminate your employment, effective immediately. You'll receive the standard severance package, pending the outcome of the investigations. You'll need to hand in your access card today." It felt like a sentence. The board members left quietly. Mark sank into his chair, eyes burning. "Memory back." Hannah drenched, whispering, "You'll regret this." He thought she meant embarrassment. He hadn't understood she meant consequence. His phone buzzed. A message from Lena. He grabbed it like a lifeline. "Lena, given everything going public, we should stop seeing each other. It's not good for my reputation." Another bubble appeared before he could type. "Lena, I'm blocking this number. Don't contact me again." Then, message failed. "The recipient has blocked you." He stared at the screen. The woman who had supported him while doubting his wife had stepped away the moment things became inconvenient. Logic callback. In Hannah's evidence packet, Lena's past pattern was documented. Short-term relationships, emotional leverage, disappearing whenever things grew risky. Mark whispered to himself, "I trusted all the wrong people." When he reached home later, the house he once called ours felt like a foreign building. Eleanor sat on the couch amid a mess of letters and printed emails. Her hands shook as she shuffled through them. "These are lies," she snapped, voice breaking. "They're twisting everything. Investigations, account reviews. They're saying I manipulated funds. After all I did," Mark picked up one letter. "Notice of formal inquiry into unreported transfers and unauthorized withdrawals," it read. He looked at dates, amounts, account names. He recognized them. Times he'd asked where money went and had been given vague answers. His voice dropped. "You did steal, Mom." Eleanor's head snapped up, eyes wide. "I did it for you," she screamed. "You think your precious wife didn't want this to happen? She exposed me." Memory back. Her stage photo, her whispers. Women like her don't stay long. Now the same woman who had controlled everyone with fear sat trapped by the paper trail she never expected Hannah to trace. Mark sank into a chair. The silence between him and his mother felt heavier than any argument they'd ever had. His life piece by piece. His wife, gone. His job, gone. His reputation, tarnished. His mistress, gone. His mother, under investigation. His phone vibrated with a new notification from the bank. He opened it. Joint marital accounts temporarily frozen pending court review. Credit cards connected to Hannah Collins' primary income have been canceled. Access to certain benefits removed. Hannah wasn't draining him. She was protecting herself, using the same financial systems she had once used to keep them afloat. He tried calling her. Once, twice, 3 times. Each call rang, then went to call declined. He tried again. Straight to voicemail. Her pre-recorded message played, calm and distant. Leave a message. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. For the first time, Mark understood that this wasn't about losing Hannah. It was about realizing he'd already thrown her away. His phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number. Mr. Collins, you are required to appear in court tomorrow morning regarding preliminary divorce proceedings and temporary orders. His stomach dropped. Court. Tomorrow. The mess of his choices had a date and time now. The building where he'd once kissed Hannah after getting their mortgage approved would now be the place where a judge decided how much of his old life he was allowed to keep. The pounding on the balcony door was frantic. Hannah stepped back instinctively, startled as the noise cut through the quiet morning. The sun was just rising over the skyline outside her temporary corporate suite, casting gold over the city. She had moved in the night before under company arrangement, both for her safety and to keep her away from the house that was now the center of a scandal. The pounding came again. "Hannah, please!" Mark's voice, hoarse, cracked. She hesitated, then crossed the living area to the glass door. Building security had called minutes earlier, saying her husband was downstairs begging to speak to her once. She had agreed, not because she owed him a conversation, but because she wanted to end this on her own terms. She unlocked the door. Mark staggered inside, still wearing the same wrinkled clothes from court. His face was swollen from crying, eyes bloodshot, shoulders slumped. He looked nothing like the neat, controlled man she married. This was the intensity. He didn't stand on dignity. He dropped to his knees on the polished floor. "Hannah, please," he choked. "I lost everything. The job, the contracts, the house. For now they say it's yours until the case is over." His voice broke. "I didn't know what Mom was doing with the money. I didn't know what Lena was doing. I believed them because," he swallowed hard, "because I was terrified you'd leave me like my father left her." Hannah watched him, arms folded loosely. Her face was calm, not cruel, not angry, just finished. A soft breeze slipped in from the balcony, lifting a strand of her hair. She had waited years for Mark to understand her, years for him to see her effort, years for him to choose her over his fear and his mother's control. He never did. Now he knelt not because he suddenly understood her worth, but because he had finally felt the consequences. He lowered his head. "I was wrong," he whispered. "I should have trusted you. I should have asked instead of accusing. I should have stood up to her a long time ago. Please, if you just give me one more chance, I'll fix everything. I'll cut my mother off. I'll get help, therapy, anything. I'll never doubt you again." She cut through his spiral with a quiet sentence. "You already did everything," she said. "You just don't like the result." He froze. Her voice didn't rise. It didn't shake. It carried the calm of someone who had replayed this conversation 1,000 times in her mind, and already decided how it ended. She walked past him to the balcony, resting her hands lightly on the rail. Memory back, Arthur's hand on her shoulder. "After tonight," he'd told her, "you won't have to hide anymore." Back then, she thought he meant only at work. Now she understood. She'd been hiding everywhere. Her success, her hurt, her boundaries, her fear of being too much. Mark slowly got to his feet, taking a hesitant step toward her. "Hannah, I can change," he insisted. "I'll prove it. I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you. Just don't leave me like this." She turned to face him fully. "I didn't walk away because of your mother," she said, "and I didn't walk away because of Lena. I walked away because when it mattered most, you chose them over the one person who was actually on your side. No bitterness, just clarity. You destroyed the woman who would have given you the world, Mark, and in doing that, you lost your own." The words landed heavier than any shouted insult. Mark's shoulders shook. A quiet, broken sound escaped him as he reached out, as if touch alone could rewind time. Hannah stepped back, keeping the distance. There was nothing left to rescue, nothing left to negotiate, nothing left to prove. She turned and walked toward the suite door, each step steady. She didn't look back, not once. Dignity was the revenge she chose, and it was the one wound he could never suture. She opened the door and walked out. Her future waited on the other side. Boardrooms, new contracts, a life where she didn't have to shrink. Behind her, Mark sank to the floor, staring at the empty doorway, realizing that the moment he'd lifted that bucket, he hadn't just thrown water. He'd washed away the only love he ever had. Somewhere far below, city traffic moved on, unbothered by the private ruin of a man who finally understood the cost of believing the wrong voices.